class based on the tasks and assignments that we've been doing over the last few days and few weeks. So our facilitator today is none other than Samaila Poloma. He is a law graduate of Ahmadu Bello University. He worked in the Ministry of Justice, Gombe State, and resigned as a principal state counsel and went into active politics till date. So he's currently in politics. He's a proprietor of a reputable nursery and primary school in Gombe called Academy of Greenwoods International School. He was also a former special assistant to the immediate past governor of Gombe State, and he is the MD of Buriad Fort Limited. He is a board member of the Electoral College, Nigeria. So let's give a warm welcome to our facilitator today. We are delighted to have you, sir. Welcome. Please indicate in the comments.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Of course, it's tradition that when a board member is taking a class, we that serve the board will be there to welcome them and usher them in. I would like to welcome a friend of mine for more than 25 years, a great person and a board member of the Electoral College, Samaila Poloma, Honorable Samaila Poloma. It's a pleasure to have you, and we look forward to a great class.
Thank you, Samai. Thank you, my boss. Thank you, sir.
I've answered that question on the boss thing, but we'll discuss it privately.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's lecture, which is about candidate declaration. If you guys are ready, I guess I'll just shoot. I guess I can go ahead, right? Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
You can
go ahead, sir. Thank you.
All right. I guess I hope they put up the material for you people earlier on today. So at least while I'm reading through it, then I'll give some explanations. You can have it in front of you so that if there's anything you don't grasp, you could talk to me about it, or you could read it on your own later on. So we're starting this topic with the introduction, which is introduction into the candidate declaration. And introduction, it starts this way. It says, in politics, a declaration notifies the public of an intention to seek public office via an election. Since an election is a formal group-making process by which a population chooses an individual to hold public office, it is crucial for an aspiring candidate to inform the electorate that he or she will be among the prospective candidates. So what's it saying? It's saying in politics, obviously, a declaration, it connotes use notifying the public of your intention to seek public office via an election. So since you are intending to throw your hat into a race, definitely you must make a declaration to make people informed or aware that you're deciding to pitch or throw your hat into a race for, be it whatever position you're deciding to run for. This paper is primarily concerned with the process of initially reaching out to your general electorate, It assumes that the process of deciding to seek elected office has been concluded, letters of intent have been distributed to necessary stakeholders, and that the prospective candidate has the ideological, moral, or other conviction to seek office, which will be drawn upon and conveyed in the declaration itself and subsequent campaign. What's it saying? It's saying declaration, it's a process after you have decided to seek office. This is, you've thought over what you want to do, which office you want to run for. You've sent out, there's something you call a letter of intent, whereby you send it out to stakeholders, be it at party level, especially since when you're making a declaration, before you go to the general election, there's always a primaries of a political party. So you send a letter of intent to declare for a certain office, which is the normal procedure. It's a letter where you tell the stakeholders of your party or your ward or your general area, you let them know that, okay, you are notifying them of the intention to want to run for so and so an office. That's not a declaration. That's just a letter of intent to notify them. Because a lot of times, a lot of the stakeholders want to be notified before you make an official declaration to run for any office. So that's what that is all about. And then it also says, before you make a declaration, obviously, you the candidate, you have the ideological, moral, and conviction to seek whatever office you want to run for. You will know which office you want to run for, how qualified you are, what are the qualifications that's needed for whatever office you want to run for. Why do you want to do this? These are cogent questions you should ask yourself before you make a declaration. Because once you make a declaration, there's no going back. So you should have answered these questions satisfiably to yourself. And then you're convinced that, okay, this is really what you want to do, then you can do it. How can I make a difference? How am I ready for the challenges? Do I have the support of the stakeholders? Because obviously, before you make a declaration, you should have sampled out the stakeholders to get at least an inkling of what they think about your prospective declaration, or what if you throw your hat into the race eventually. And also another cogent reason, which there's a topic I think on this, how will I fund this? That is a very, very, very important thing. You must think of how you're going to fund your campaign in the long run. Because from the moment you're making in short, the process before even making a declaration, it involves funding. Because there are so many things that have to put in place to make that declaration, which involves a lot of funding. So these are things you must have put into consideration before you decide to run or officially make a declaration for whatever office you're running for. A declaration must be an introduction as well as a preview of who the intended candidate is. So where it's basically you're introducing yourself to who the prospective voters are, be it at the primary levels, delegates, or the general electorate. They should have an idea of who you are, what your political views are, what he or she hopes to bring to the sought out office, and how he or she will deliver on those goals. These are things that your declaration must have in them. These statements must receive as wide as an audience within the constituency as possible. It must contain certain elements to be impactful. A declaration begins a political race in earnest and sets the tone for the rest of the campaign. A well-articulated, well-delivered, and well-viewed/attended declaration is invaluable. So what is this saying? The declaration is, if you put in the wrong foot from the declaration point, then most likely you're going to encounter problems along the way. So this is like the beginning of your campaign generally. So you should always make sure that all your ducks are in a row and you're well prepared, because how you start your declaration is the vibe that will go around, your eventual campaigning and seeking for votes. These things do really count. And especially if you've seen how elections are going on right now in this country, these things invariably are going to play, your declaration invariably is going to play a major role when you're campaigning. So now we're going to the declaration properly. What is declaration? The word in itself is self-explanatory. It's a statement by an aspiring candidate by which he or she officially tells the world of his or her intention to contest for an elective office. Traditionally, which is normally the normal norm of how to make declarations, it involved reading out a prepared document in most advanced countries, and in most cases I've seen these days in Nigeria, which is the new, with the advent of, what they call it, YouTube and all the rest. Now people make declarations declaration is done through a media briefing, TV, over the radio, social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's departing away from the normal norm, which was known, okay, you come with a prepared text, you stand on the podium, and you make an official declaration to the populace, with cameras there, or depending on cameraman or whatever it is, declaring officially that you're running for office. But, the traditional way is not like it's still not done, because in the immediate past, just before the past primaries at presidential level, His Excellency, the former Vice President of the country, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, made an official declaration with the prepared text, which was done in Abuja. So, and I guess some other candidates also did the same thing, like even the sitting Vice President, Yemi Oshibanjo, made an official declaration, which was a prepared text where he came on and officially threw his hat into the race, saying he was declared to run for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So like I said, bear in mind that the declaration has multiple audiences. So when you're making a declaration, you should always bear in mind that, okay, there are 4 prospective people you are trying to target or at least capture, depending on at what point you're making a declaration, which I'll go into later on. The general public, the prospective voters, because the general public, not everybody is a valid voter. But the general public knowing about your declaration also does help, because if there's a buzz about your declaration, talk about it. It also helps sway thoughts about, you, the candidate, eventually. Then the prospective voters, which are the legally viable voters, people that can vote at the general elections. Then we also have the party delegates, which obviously we all know at the primary levels, these are the people that, hold the ace. If they don't vote for you, you don't get the nomination of the party to be able to be the flag bearer at the general elections. And then all the 6 stakeholders. There's a group of people called the stakeholders, which I'll talk about as we will continue. They are very, very important. So when making a declaration, these 4 people, most of the time, I really are trying to capture their minds, to get them on your team, so that it invariably helps you successfully in your campaign. And then now we move to factors when making a declaration. Number 1, who makes a declaration? One of the major factors, who are people that make a declaration? When, like I said, any prospective candidate for any elective office, that could be at and within. That means at the national level, we have the president. Note that the vice president doesn't make a declaration because they are selected. Vice presidents, deputy governors are always selected on the ticket of a prospective candidate for governor or the presidential level. So they don't make declarations at the national level. And at the state level, we have governors, senators, House of Rep members, like we all know. Even I in my own strata, I put at local government ward level, I put chairman of wards, State House of Assembly, because State House of Assembly have to do with wards, not generally the whole state. It's divided into wards. The people that are conversant with the political structure of the country right now will know that this kind of State House of Assembly, ward chairman, local government chairman, they deal with wards and local governments at the local government level, not at the state level. Then we also have political parties. People make declarations when running for offices of political parties. This could be at the national level, regional, state, or local government / ward. For example, like I put here, someone that is running for Imo to be the Imo State youth leader of whichever party, be it the APC or PDP. We've seen this in the run up to just before the elections when we were having even the APC. We saw a lot of their candidates running for things like youth leaders coming out with their declarations, saying manifestos and saying this is what they were going to do if they were given the offices of youth leader, the deputy national chairman, and so forth and so on and so forth. Then also, people that make a declaration is just not strictly for political parties. Let me use that word. Even pressure groups, like I put here, professional associations and pressure groups. For example, the Nigerian Medical Association, they have people when they are running for offices of maybe the president of the Nigerian Medical Association, people make declarations. Even the Farmers Union, even the NBA, like I am a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. People running for office of the president, they actually do make declarations and tour state to state seeking votes. So these are the kind of people, who make declarations when running for whatever office sought, be it at at an association level, be it at political party level, and so forth. The position sought will dictate the audience, medium, and even the venue of the declaration. What is this saying? If you are running for example, you are running for State House of Assembly member. Now I will use an example of my state, Gombe State. I'm from Balanga North. We have 5 wards. If I'm going to make a declaration, I'm going to make a declaration with focus on my 5 wards, not the whole 11 local governments of my state. I'll do that at my 5 wards level, since these are the prospective voters that I am trying to capture, the party stakeholders, etc. So that's why it says the position sought to dictate the audience, medium, and even the venue for declaration. If I'm running for presidency, obviously, that's a national thing. So you want a national-wide broadcast because you're trying to capture people from different 36 states of the federation. Now we go to why make a declaration. Politics is a game it's a numbers game. Elections are won based on the amount of votes secured by candidates. A declaration seeks to bring prospective voters to support your candidacy. So a declaration, it brings prospective to support your candidacy to get you in the race. That's the official thing a declaration does. That's the first thing it does. It gets you into the race. Because the moment you make an official declaration, you've thrown your hat into the race. Meaning, okay, I, for example, Samaila Paloma, I'm trying to run for the office of governor of Gombe State, and making that official declaration to the world. Now everybody knows I'm running for the office of governorship, or I'm going to be in gubernatorial race for my party or my state, depending on what level, whatever level you're at, to get publicity. When you make that official declaration and throw your hat into the race, that declaration is also getting you publicity, because at that point, people begin to know, oh, this person is running for so and so office, and it's talked about. And even if people were not opportuned at your official declaration, it's got you that publicity, because maybe someone close to someone was opportune to watch your declaration or read your declaration or hear about your declaration. So they talk about it, there'll be a buzz, and it gathers you publicity. It gathers you a lot of buzz around you to help you eventually in your campaign. To create awareness about your campaign, it's creating an awareness once you make a declaration. Because when you're making that official declaration to the people, there are things encouched in there that you talk about, and then they begin to understand, okay, this candidate, this is what it stands for. These are the policies he wants to bring to the table if eventually he gets to clinch the ticket or win the general elections eventually. So it creates an awareness about your campaign, and it helps you begin to build a voter base. Because the declaration, a lot of times people undervalue this, but the way your declaration goes, there are a lot of intelligent people out there now, especially even if we're looking at the trends going now politically in this country. A lot of people are becoming more aware. It's not like the past where maybe, quote unquote, it was the uneducated that were voting. Now there's a lot of educated people. So by a lot of people, just mere fact of watching your declaration, seeing how, what you're putting forward to them, you're already getting a voter base. A lot of people are beginning to say, I'm going to pitch my tent with this person because I'm impressed with what he's saying in his declaration, so on and so forth. The language, the tone, and declaration should convey your intentions, inspire the electorate, and contain convincing arguments. Don't go and be verbose, try to bring English, try to impress people. Just straight to the point. Tell them what you want to talk about. Tell them why you're running for the office. Tell them what you feel you can bring to the office if eventually you get the ticket. It's simple and short and concise. I think that's the best way to go about it. Then we go to the third thing. What should I include in a declaration? Like I said, knowing your audience is key to writing a declaration. The demographics, social, economic, cultural, religious dynamics must be carefully considered. An aspiring candidate must be able to connect with the electorate. What are the biggest challenges in the constituency? What can I do about them? What's the same? When you're making your declaration, after you've introduced yourself, at least a brief introduction about yourself, and then you talk about, okay, this is the office you're running for and why you're running for so and so office. You must always think about your target audience when you're writing that or making your declaration. For example, now, I'm going to give you a brief example of this. If you're running for the office of governor, now you're going to the market women to make a declaration that you want to run for the office of governor. You're not going to give them stats and facts like you would give an association of economists. No, that's, as a matter of fact, if you're going to be talking to them, they'll be like, what's this one talking about? What they are concerned about is how their bag of tomato can be sold and they can make a profit. So when making a declaration, you should always have to put at the back of your mind, what is my target audience at this point? Who am I talking to? If you're talking to people that are professionals, you know what words and how to try and convince them. If you're talking to market people, you know how to try and convince them. If you're going to the villages and nooks and crannies, you know how to try and convince them. So for every given target audience, there's a way you have to go about it. That's what it means. A declaration, like I said, I stated earlier, is a statement of intent. This must be typed, a typed document. It must contain, but it's not limited to the following: a brief autobiography about yourself, the office sought, the reasons why the candidate is seeking the said office, appraisal of the past and current developments of the respective constituency, aspirations and goals, solicitation of support, and a commitment/promise. So these are brief little things. This is not exhaustive, like I say, obviously. There are other things that you think of to put in your declaration. But this is just about, what is needed in your declaration when you're making a declaration to run for any office. Note that this declaration is intended for a wider audience. Like I said, The language should be motivational but simple, straightforward but memorable. Targeted statements for specific audiences within the broader constituency can be made in the course of campaign, which I earlier talked about. Like if you're talking to maybe the market women or a group of professionals, economic body, or group of lawyers, etc. There are different languages you're going to use for them. You won't use the same kind of language you use to talk to market women, to talk to a body of economists. It won't fly. So these are things that you should always have at the back of your mind when you're making your declaration. Then we'll go to the fourth one. What are the main challenges when making a declaration? A declaration requires careful thought and meticulous execution, both when planning it and when delivering it. Some of the biggest challenges include, but it's not exhaustive, like I always say. These are ones I've come across and I could put on paper to discuss with you guys. There are other things that could eventually come up, but most of the time it's about the things that you face when making a declaration. The committing your thought to paper, like we all know, most of us, it's so easy to talk, but when it comes to actually putting your thoughts to paper and itemizing and writing, it's kind of difficult. It's not so easy. So it takes a lot of planning. I know a lot of people that when making a declaration, it takes them years before they even eventually make the declaration, because putting that thought to paper, it's always kind of difficult. You can think about it, you have this wonderful idea in your head, but when it comes to actually putting it down, it becomes kind of difficult to pull through. Research and isolating relevant information. We've seen how of recent now we're having issues where we have these things like fact-checking politicians when making statements, because a lot of times it's not easy to research and isolate what information is actually vital or important to what you need at that point. So these are things that must be carefully done when making a declaration, because we're in the era where a little thing could cause a problem for you, especially when Nigeria right now, the youths are kind of angry. And they are at least averagely educated. So when you come off as someone that is not actually truthful in your declaration, it's a minus. So these are things that you should always put into consideration when making a declaration. Proofreading and fact-checking, which is also having to do with research and isolating relevant information. You have to proofread what you've read and fact-check your information to make sure you're not lying, or you don't have untrue facts or untrue information in your declaration. We go to production cost. Production cost, like I was saying earlier on, before you make a declaration, you should think about how you're going to fund it. Because, okay, you've decided, you put your thoughts to paper, you've isolated the relevant information, you've proofread it, you've fact-checked it. Okay, now it's time to produce those texts that you've put on paper. It's money. It's not you must spend money to produce those documents, which you're eventually going to distribute when you're making your official declaration. So that's something that could all be a problem or a challenge eventually. Now we come to distribution. Distribution too is very, very, very sometimes quite difficult, because when you've done all these things, you've produced it, you give, maybe if it's not properly distributed, you see a lot of times you've gone for functions, even political declarations, where you see lumps and lumps of declaration materials just dumped on the side, and people don't even have the declaration of whoever the prospective candidate is. But yet there's so much material that has been printed and it just goes to waste because there was not a proper distribution of that document for people's consumption. Gathering an audience, we all know it's not an easy thing, because first things first, there's a lot of people are kind of, will I say, depressed with the political situation, one. So even if you have a lot to say and you have a lot to do or have a change from the past, gathering an audience to come and listen to your declaration, be like, oh yes, it's just one of the same old. You'll probably just come and give us all the stories and probably just do the same old thing. So it's not easy to actually get people, agitated or excited to want to come to a declaration. And most of the time, declarations are made either probably on public holidays or weekends. People are working during the week and they just say, oh, please, it's not necessary. Whatever is going on there, let's leave it to them. Like most Nigerians always say, which is wrong. You should actually especially if it's in your locality. If someone is declaring for an office, it's something actually interesting to go watch it. See what it's all about, understand what the person is talking about. From there you can begin to assess whether this person is the right person to begin to pitch your tent with or not. Then after the gathering an audience, delivering in front of a crowd. I'm sure most of us here probably make presentations. You see how when we're chatting with our friends, we're all bubbly, all talky, but when it comes to a crowd or an audience, delivering in front of a crowd, because sometimes they might be very hostile. It could be in the constituency of your opponent. You're going to make a declaration. So there will be heckling you, there will be boos. So you have to be very, 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 very brave to be able to face that kind of crowd and make your declaration without staring off or, getting, ruffled and agitated along the line. Security, making a declaration, definitely you need security. That goes without saying, because you're going to be going to places that, you don't know what could happen. Anything can happen at that point. You are making a declaration, someone might not like something you said, and things can just, spiral out of control and get rough. So you always need security force, to be safe when making declarations. Transport and logistics. Now, people wonder why I'm saying when you're making a declaration, you need transport and logistics. Like I said earlier on, if you're making a declaration, like I always give the example of running for in my constituency, running for State House of Assembly. I had to make a declaration in the 5 different words when I was running for office. You must store those 5 different words and make your declaration at the word level. You cannot just do a general declaration and feel, okay, that suffices. They would get very upset. How people are, they'll feel also, you feel maybe they're not worth the time or the stress. So you are going to have to go to each and every word to make that same declaration. So that's why you have to put into consideration transportation and logistics. Because, for example, if you're running for House of Representatives, House of Reps, I'll use my area, my constituency. We have Biliri Balanga. We have 20 words, 10 words in each local government. Now you're going to put those 20 different words. Obviously, you have to put into consideration transportation, logistics, security, and things like that. And then provision of motivation such as monetary consideration and refreshment. Now, what does this mean? This is not bribing, because people might think, okay, you're trying to bribe the delegates or people at your declaration so that they can support you. No, but it only goes without saying. If you're inviting people to come for a declaration of yours, there should be some motivation, a soft drink, a bottle of water, depending on wherever the location is, even if it's a meat pie. So it's not like bribe, it's just, to motivate people and make them feel like, okay, you acknowledge and you're happy that they decided to come for your declaration, official declaration. And I said, when gathering in front of anyone, always be prepared also for a negative reception. Because like I said, you probably would go to maybe a constituency of another prospective candidate to make a declaration. And, they won't be very welcoming to you because obviously they have their own man or woman, depending on who the candidate is at that point. So you should always be prepared for things like that. It is important to keep in mind that regardless of how prepared you are, there will be challenges and encumbrances. So be prepared mentally and stay strong. Be guided by your conviction and ambition, because I always say this, your conviction and ambition is what is going to get you through when the challenges are being thrown at you. That's what will keep you staying, because a lot of time politics, I can assure you, it's not easy. At some point, you'll be like, why did I even go into this? Is it necessary? Should I, pull back? But if you are convinced and, you have an ambition, then that will what will steer you on despite the difficulties that you will face. Now, we come to where should I make a declaration? We talked about that briefly earlier. Depending on office sorts and its respective constituency, declarations are made in the following arenas, as I said, on the national television, the state television, national radio, local radio, town halls / social gatherings, social media. Note that one or some of all these may be used, and that you may have to repeat your declaration. I said that also a number of times, because depending on the constituents or the people you're talking to, you are going to have to say the same declaration over and over to them. You might even get tired of it, but it's something you have to do. It's just part of the political process. The key thing is to be consistent, like I always say. Be consistent in when making a declaration. Then we come to helpful tips when making a declaration. One, try to choose a perfect day to make a declaration when activity is reduced, such as over the weekends or during a public holiday, because then you are more likely to get the attention of people. But if it's a day, for example, you decide to make a declaration on a weekday, on a work day, most of us are busy, so how many people have the time to say, okay, take away from that their busy schedule, or say they're going to leave their offices to come and listen to a declaration by a prospective candidate? It's most likely difficult. So you should always look for days when you know that there's less traffic, even as in people are more at home and will be more obliged to want to come listen to you. Don't announce your campaign before you have a campaign budget and strategy in place. So that means that before you make an official declaration, you must have a strategy, a campaign budget, etc. in place. You don't go and make a declaration and now fall back and start to plan these things. It doesn't work that way. It will become a problem for you, a serious problem for you. First, your theme, message before you declare, the important issues you want to address, your action plan, your political philosophy, what's the same. Before you make a declaration or write what your theme is, what your message is to the people, these are things that you should test with friends, family, critics. Let people critique you. However harsh it might be, it's helpful because, they'll tell you, this is your theme, it doesn't fly. You could coin something else or do it this way, or, okay, on this issue that you're talking about, it doesn't really make sense. Maybe you should couch it in a different way because so and so people might not, you might ruffle some feathers. So that's why you should always do things like this before you make a declaration. It's very helpful. And I said, select the most ideal location to announce, bearing your target audience in mind. If it's in a local ward level or local government, there are town halls, maybe market square, so that you can have as more audience or people at your declaration, which is very invaluable, very, very helpful. Be punctual and set up on time when you're making the day of your declaration. You should be punctual. You should not, this big managing thing country where you rather have people waiting for you. And why shouldn't they come and meet you there? It shows that you're a serious person. And these are things that, we overlook, but these things do mean something. You are the one that's inviting the people to your declaration, so you should be there before them on time, set and ready to, discuss with them and have a conversation. Have your own photographer, camera crew. You will need records, especially for traditional and social media use. Because obviously, once you made your official declaration, you want to spread it on social media, maybe YouTube, Facebook, etc., so that more people, target audience can, get your message. Make sure you have some supporters present as moral boosters when making your declaration. So even if you're going to a hostile territory, you should also have your own praise singers around you, so that even when it's getting kind of difficult, you have people around you that will give you the morale to continue. You say something, there are some cheers at the back, some hailing and some clapping. It does help. But if it's just nobody around to cheer you on, it can be kind of difficult when making a declaration. It is very important to always inform the power base prior to your declaration. I talked about this in the beginning of this lecture. An announcement, even though most likely will not, most will not probably attend. Now, who are these major stakeholders? They are your party leaders, the major stakeholders and organizations. These people, that's why I say when you're making a letter of intent, these are people you should meet. Because if you make a declaration without letting these people know, often not, there will be an impediment to your progress. That's how it works politically in this country, unfortunately or fortunately. So these people should always be notified before you make an official declaration, even though most of them will not attend to the declaration. Focus on issues and not your prospective opponent's shortcomings, e.g. the incumbent. What are you bringing to the table? Not about, oh, he didn't do this and I will. You should isolate most of the time, try and isolate the incumbent and talk about your own policies and what you plan to bring to the table. Some might not disagree, but like I said earlier on, but I believe that when holding a town hall meeting, there should be some little motivation for those who attend such an occasion. It's not a bribery. You're just letting them know you appreciate them taking their precious time to come to your official declaration for whatever office you're running for. Now we come to the conclusion. A lot of aspiring aspirants have not realized, or in fact tend to ignore the importance of a declaration. It is a very pivotal part of any successful campaign. There is a lot of planning which goes on before a declaration. Sometimes it takes years to develop. Most important thing is to end up with something that is well executed to captivate those whose votes you seek to win. But it must stay true to who you are. You don't start lying to try and impress people. Be real. I don't, it's kind of difficult, especially when you're in the political setting, but we should be real, because now people are going to be holding politicians more to their word. Remember that the declaration is the instrument that launches your campaign. It is what those who you hope will vote for you will latch onto and use to assess and compare you to your rivals. If your campaign is successful, it will be used to rate your performance in a re-election bid or in any subsequent campaign. It cannot be overstated how important this is to get right. Thank you. So basically, this is the little tidbits I believe any prospective candidate should know about declaration, or when making a declaration. These little things will guide you, like I always say, these things are not exhaustive. There are things that could come up along the line, but at least generally you have a general idea of what to do, how to go about it when making a declaration. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. This has been an insightful session. Thank you very much. Please feel free to, put your comments. What do you think about the class so far? And now we move to the Q&A session. If you have any questions, kindly raise your hands. VC, I see your hands. All right, so we'll start with VC. VC, you can ask your question. Unmute and ask your question. Once again, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you, sir, for delivering a wonderful presentation. It was very clear and precise and understandable. But I want to ask, the declaration that you just presented, is it the same thing with manifesto? Or is there any difference between declaration and manifesto?
When you're making a declaration, your manifesto is encouched in your declaration, because that's when you're officially declaring to run for that office. So whatever your manifesto is, what you plan to do or what you think you're going to bring to the table. In the declaration, it should be encouched in your declaration. Do you understand that?
So they are the
yes, they are basically one and the same thing.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, VC. Our next question will be coming from James Olorundare. James, please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, good evening, co-heads, and good evening, host, and good evening, facilitator. Thank you very much for such an insightful lesson on declaration. Okay, I really learned a lot through your lecture. What I just wanted to ask is, I believe this platform, Electoral College, should be a platform that would spur young Nigerians, that would be innovators and people that are meant to come to the scene and change the mode of things. Now, throughout your lecture, I didn't hear you incorporating political branding to declaration. I think that's powerful. I think that's key, and I think that's innovative. Okay, permit me to just make mention of this example. If you notice, the Vice President's declaration, there were many things that in sense of political branding were not appropriate, like wearing a black clothes, having such background. I think these things are important things when you are declaring. If you also follow, there's one Khadijat Okunu Lamidi, I think she contested under SDP. When she declared, the brand for that declaration was awesome. I think it's very important. If we are going to change the narrative, we should also take into account of our brand, because when you are coming to declare, your brand is very important. The colors, the combination, they say a lot about you, not just only what you say. Your brand is actually very important. So I didn't hear that aspect, and I wanted to ask about that. That's the first question. The second question is on the slide of your lecture. I think there was a part you made mention of declaration twice or something like that. Okay, that's sorry, I'm going through I want to pinpoint where it is on the lecture notes.
All right.
Okay, that's under where should I make a declaration? After the social media, you said note that one, some or all these may be used, and that you may have to repeat your declaration a number of times. I don't understand. Are you saying when a candidate is vying for an office, or I want to vie for governor, it's possible I make declaration several times? I think from my own knowledge that declaration should be maybe once, or it should only come for an ambition. Maybe if I vie for a House of Reps, okay, I might make a declaration for my House of Reps ambition. If I, in the nearest future, decide to vie for governorship, I can make another declaration for that government. So I don't understand your declaration a number of times. So those are my two questions, the part of political branding and this other aspect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll start with the second question. What I mean by making a declaration several times, if you listen during the lecture, I said I gave an example and which I used my constituency for State House of Assembly, which is Balanga North in Gombe State. Now we have 5 wards. Now the tradition is you must go to each and every ward to make an official declaration. So hence you're going to be making a declaration not once, 5 times. Because you cannot go to the headquarters of the local government, for say, and go and make a declaration and the remaining wards you don't go. They will not accept it. The constituents, and now we're even talking at the party level, the ward executives will not accept it. You must go to each and every ward to officially declare to them that you're running for an office. There's a thing that's done at the local level. If you don't officially go and tell them, even if you've declared in some ward, they will be acting, even if you see them, they will act and say, oh, they don't know you're running for office. Because as far as they are concerned, you've not come to officially declare in their own constituency or in their own wards. So that's why I say you make a declaration countless times. Is that understood? Then on the second issue of branding, yes, it's not been overlooked. I know that, yes, you need to put into consideration, how your looks, the background, because it also help you sway. But like I said, it's not exhaustive. This lecture, there are other things that, when I was putting the lecture together, it didn't come to my mind. But this is something that also any politician should put into consideration when making a declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. James, I believe your question has been answered. Okay, yes, it has. Precious, you're next. Please ask your question.
All right, good evening, all. Good evening, facilitator. Thank you for a very wonderful presentation, quite insightful, and a whole lot of things to pick up and keep beefing up our own knowledge base and readiness to take up the gauntlet when it gets to our turn. All right, so I have 2 quick questions. First one is related to what Mr. James has just talked about, which is about a possible scenario where you have to do your declaration at various times, various venues. Yeah. Is it proper? You did talk about consistency. Is there a problem if, since the declaration is a document, is a is something that you've written down. Is it a problem if you repeat exactly the same thing on all those occasions? I know, of course, it won't be exactly the same thing. There'll be some inflections, there'll be some humanity to it, but then basically, substantially, is a problem if it's the same thing you declare at these places. Then number two is you talked about conciseness, right? It shouldn't be verbose, it shouldn't be too big. But then, is there a range? Say, okay, let me give an instance. We are currently handling some assignments within different groupings and all, and then some of us have had to write up stuff, and sometimes you find something that is up to 2 pages. Of course, this is at this level. I know when you are doing something in particular, and it might get beyond that. So, at what point is it so lengthy now, such that it loses, the people are lost, and all of that? I hope this question is not so ambiguous. All right, so those are my 2 questions.
2 questions. Okay, the first one you were talking about was, okay, reading the same text in a function. Yes, at that point, since you are going to be, like I told you, you're going to go to different words, you're going to make the same declaration. You should, obviously, it's the same text you're going to read to them. Obviously, you might have to make some adjustments here and there, but generally it's the same text. Do you understand? So the same text is what you're going to use as when you're making a declaration in different words, for example. Now you're talking about being verbose and being concise, and okay, how lengthy should your text be? In that situation, obviously, it depends on the candidates. Literally, it's only advisable that you don't get people bored, because the whole idea of your declaration is you want to keep them connected to you. So whatever you're doing, you should always put at the back of your mind that you don't want to get them lost or get them tired. Once you do that, it becomes a problem for you, the candidates. So yes, a text of 2 pages, it might even be 4 pages, as long as you know that you can keep them hoodwinked on what you're talking about. Whatever text you want to write, or how many pages, it's fine. Is that understood?
Samala, if I could, sorry to jump in here. Precious,
Yeah.
if I could just add a little bit, I'd like to say that you need to understand when you are delivering. Let me use Honorable Samala's example. So he has to go to 5 different words. Yeah, maybe his core parameters for his campaign are provision of water, but he might go to word 1 and there's water. So he could just be talking about social amenities there and then play down the water. Word 2, that there's no water, he will talk about water. Word 3, he might be talking electricity, but all he's talking about is provision of social amenities. Depending on the word, will you adapt? Because everybody has different problems. You need to be able to address this word's problem, to get them enticed to you. So that's how you talk to word 1, but won't be the way you talk to word 2 based on their problems. And then you switch when you're talking to word 3 because the problems are totally different, and then word 4 and word 5. So thank you very much, Samala. Sorry for interrupting, sir. Thank you.
No problem, my boss. You're allowed to go. All right. Are there still any more questions?
Right. Yes, there are. Thank you very much, EG. Thank you very much, sir. Right. The next question is from Esther. Esther, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, good evening, sir. I really enjoyed the lecture. I enjoyed the class, and thank you for what you are doing in the electoral college. My question is this, though part of it has been answered in a way. That is about when one should declare according to the number of words that is depending on what the position you wanted to run for. Like you cited an example that in your words, where you want to run, maybe there are 5 words there, you declare within the 5 words.
Yes.
Then my question now is that I can't really get the difference between declaration and campaign, because in another instances, you made us to understand that if you want to declare with market women, you choose the choice of words one will use so that one can be able to pass across the message to them. So I don't really know. Can market women be part of what, or you just is a way of digression? I can't really say it.
Okay, now what that means is, in your words, in every word, it's a word is. I hope you understand what a word is. You have it, for example, you have a local government, and in that local government, you have words. Depending on your state, I don't know how many words are in your local government, but I'll use mine as an example. I'm from Balanga local government in Gombe State. In Balanga local government in Gombe State, we have 10 words. Now, in those 10 words, you have the party executives in those wards, you have market women in those wards, you have youths in those wards. So when you're making a declaration, now, after you've made a general declaration, like which is especially, and this, when we're market women and associations come into play, most especially after you've won the party tickets, that is when those people come into play. That is when you begin to sit down with them to tell them of your intention to run for that office. So this is where you now have to use words that, at least amiable to them, that they understand. Do you understand that?
Okay. Yes, I've gotten it. That is, you meet all those stakeholders after one has won the ticket, not for declaration any longer.
No, let me explain.
Yeah, when you win the ticket in a party, that you won the ticket. Now you're going to come and make people and tell them, I so and so, I'm running for this office of so and so, and I need your support. Okay, campaign now is about to start. Now, people that have won the tickets are going to come to the populace to ask for their support based on the fact that they are running for, I am running for so and so office. So do you understand that at that point, these people now, you are declaring to them that you are running for this office, because they don't know you won the party ticket. That is the understanding. They don't know that you're a candidate for APC or PDP or Labour Party. Now you are coming to meet them, like you see what Peter Obi has been doing. Let's use that as a case study. He's been going to declare people that he's running for office, seeking their support. Is that understood?
Let me make something clear here. No, let me add something to you, because I think this is necessary for everyone in the class. Declaration is not a one-day thing. Yes, you have the official declaration one time, like Mr. President, like you want to run for presidency, and then you go ahead and you just declare on Arise News to be shown on TVC, to be shown. Candidates have declarations. Presidential candidates do that. Gubernatorial have declarations. But I will tell you that if it is declaration now, not the official declaration to your party, you've won the ticket. To the last day of campaign, you will be declaring to different subsets of people continuously. I'm sure Sammy has run for office, he knows how this goes. You keep declaring, you declare to teachers, you declare to meat sellers, you declare to what they call it, road transport workers, you declare to dependents. You're going to keep declaring and declaring. You declare to medical doctors, you declare to nurses, you declare to traditional rulers. It is constant. So declaration is not, stop looking at it in your head as a one-day thing. It's not a one day. There's the official declaration.
A continuous process.
Yes, but declaration is a continuous process till election day, till they suspend campaigns. Do not think it's a one-day action. It's not.
All right, Esther, I believe your question has been answered. Do you have any other question?
Yes. No.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. The next question is from Umar Salman. Umar Salman, please ask your question.
Good evening, all. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. Actually, my question has been answered. I wanted to seek clarification on those that should be involved at the official at the first declaration stage, and the question has been answered. It should be the party men. Then, after one has won the ticket, then you can now begin to meet various stakeholders in the community or in your constituency.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mar. So our next question is from Raliat. Raliat, please ask your question.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Part of my question has been answered. I just actually need more clarification. And this is I want to bring a scenario. Is as regards declaration and manifesto. Usually in school, the way we run school, when I was in school politics, you make the official declaration, just like you also mentioned. You make the official declaration, probably via group chat and all of that. Then we now, after the official declaration, you now proceed to go into different faculties, different units and departments and all of that. You keep whatever you keep going. You declare again. Then you now say you declare again. Then maybe you just add some things you want to do if you eventually assume office. Now they will not the electoral body will design another event, another program entirely for manifesto. There's like a manifesto day where all aspirants will come out and state their manifesto, what they will be offering while they are in office. So I just want to, I know that all this can be part of the campaign process. Maybe the campaign is like the umbrella. Now what I want to ask is there, and you mentioned that because of the question someone asked, he said manifesto is part of declaration that they work in tandem. Now my question, I just feel like I need more clarification. Is it that the way we are practicing it in school is different from the way it is practiced in real life politics? And were we in school then? Were we following the right method we are supposed to be using, or in different situations it could mean different, or they could be used separately? Because really, even in real life politics, when people come, apart from the official declaration, when they come again, they just like reintroduce themselves and they're vying for this office and they start rolling out the things they want to do in the office. Now, those that they are talking about, would we say that those things are declaration? So I just need clarification. I hope my question was is clear.
Yeah, well, I think I understand where you're coming from. Now you see, it's what was done in your university. It's not wrong. It's not like there's any rule to how things are done, or there is like if you don't do it this way, then you've, let's say, broken the law, or you're not doing it the right way. Yes, I know that there used to be manifesto nights, especially when it's having to do with student unionism and the rest. Now you see the difference with this is this: you're running for a political office. Most of the times you don't have anything like a manifesto night. When you're running for political office, you're making an official campaign. There is no stage, especially at the party level, where all the candidates are brought together to come and discuss what they are bringing or offering to the table. So that is why when you are making your official declaration, those things which you seem are pertinent to what you want to do, if you get into office, or things you want to change, that's why you state them in your declaration. Because at that point, that is probably your only available position to be able to itemize and let people know this is who I am, this is why I'm running for this, and this is what I want to do. There is no stage at the party primary levels in particular. There is no stage where you see, okay, the candidates are called again to come and itemize out what they want to do situation. It almost already rarely happens. So that's why your manifesto, when you're making a declaration, whatever it is that you want to do and things, you should be encouched in that declaration, which is your manifesto, but it's encouched in your declaration. Is that understood?
I believe it is, sir.
Then what did you say?
For that question, Raliat. Oh, I said I believe it is, sir. She's muted. I said thank you for, and then I thanked her for the
Yeah, that
question.
was the service.
So we'll go to Zoomji. Zoomji, please ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for the lecture.
You're welcome.
My question is, we were talking about declaration to party stakeholders. So
Yeah.
in an instance where you make your declaration to those party stakeholders, and then some are agreeing, and then some are not agreeing, should you go ahead to make your public declaration? Probably, maybe they are like 5 stakeholders, and then 3 are saying we don't want you. and then 2 are saying, should you go ahead to now?
Now, you see, that is it's your conviction, because as a politician or whenever you're declaring to run for office, not everybody is going to, but your plan and hope is that you could be able to sway them to support you eventually. So if you are, like you said, out of 5 stakeholders, you have 2. That's a good starting point. Some people might not even have 1 when they're making the declaration, but along the line, they get to, sway and convince those party stakeholders to support them. So that you're having to, at that point, that should be very encouraging, as a matter of fact, and spur you on, because as a politician, till the last day before election, all they are trying to do is woo people to support you. So that at the initial stage, only 2 are supporting you doesn't mean that, it's a bad omen. It's not necessarily so. It should only spur you on to try. And so you make your official declaration. When you make your official declaration, people that maybe were even, were like circumvent or like not sure of you, become and be like, say, okay, wow, they're actually impressed with this guy. Maybe let's give him, let's watch to see how things pan out with his campaign and how he's going to declaration process and, selling his manifesto. Do you understand?
Yes, sir, we do. Thank you very much, Zoomji. Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Bamai. Bamai, please ask the question.
My question is it possible after the declaration to...
Sorry, I can barely hear you.
We cannot hear you, Bamai.
Can you hear me now?
Well, it's still breaking
Okay,
up.
so I will give you the concession to type your question so that we can get what you want to ask. All right, so we'll move on to the next person, who is Sharon. Sharon, please ask your question.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for this session. I feel like it's very timely because we just were running an assignment on this, and this gives some depth to what we were trying to do. So my question is, for you personally, in your personal experience, I believe you mentioned you ran for office and your bio says you are an active politician. So I'd like to know what that experience was like, and hopefully when you run again, what would you do more of and less of as regards the conversation we're having now? That's your manifesto, stakeholders. What would you do differently, or what would you think is something to highlight for those that are interested in trying out at some point? Thank you.
Okay. If you're talking about based on my personal experience and what I think I'll do differently, well, frankly speaking, not really much. Not really much, because my political sojourn is tied to, there's a history. Let me use it that word. I come from a political family. So it's not much about what I didn't do right or what I did wrong. It's more about political alliances. Let me use that word. So frankly speaking, in my own situation, I don't think there's much I'll change. Maybe, obviously, I've become more experienced now, so I know how to handle hostile people and be more prepared when I'm going to hostile grounds. That's really about it. Frankly speaking, that's just about it. I hope that was helpful. So any more questions?
Okay, Sharon, I'll need you to, put in the comments, let us know if the question was answered. If not, you may raise your hand and we'll allow you maybe get more clarity. Bamai, I see your hand raised again. Is your network clearer? You can ask your question in the chat room. So just go to VC. VC, you may ask your question.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Okay. I wanted to ask before, but it skipped my mind, but now I remember. For the assignment that was given to us on presenting our manifestos. My challenge was on the introductory part, and since this presentation was only based on the theoretical aspect of declaration and and making of manifesto, I'm trying to know if there is a way that it can be more practical so that I can know how to start the introduction of my manifesto and how to, make it to be
The
presentable.
introduction part of your manifesto is, what does it say? You're supposed to say, I am so and so running for so and so office, right? That's the introduction part of your manifesto. They don't know you. Whoever you're going to present your manifesto to is deemed they don't know you. So you have to introduce yourself, a brief info of who you are, and then you now begin to go down to what you're running for and why you're running for it. And then you tell us what you think you want to change, or what changes you plan to bring about when running for that office. Do you understand that?
Okay. Thank you.
Is it not clear? It's not still clear? You sound like you're not convinced.
No, I'm not. But let me not take much of your time. Maybe I'll
This class we're doing it so that we all understand each other. Do you understand? So you're saying you don't know what. So what don't you understand, or what's difficult in your manifesto?
I understand.
Okay. I'm listening.
I understand everything that you said about declaration and manifesto. It's well understandable, but to practicalize it is the challenge that I'm having.
Okay, you see, this is exactly what I said. Putting your thoughts to paper is not always very easy. So sometimes that's why you have friends come in, you bounce ideas back and forth with them, so that you can have a cogent text put down.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. So I think at this point, I just want to chip in that it does look like we are looking for a formula. We want to know introduction, body, conclusion, and all that. Okay, so our next question, Sharon, you raised your hand again. Do you have a question? So I'm just going to allow you on mute before we go to Bamayi.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Yes, no, it's just as a follow-up. So in responding to my question, you mentioned how that you have learned a little about handling how to manage people that might be hostile to your message. So what I'm looking for is maybe a practical example of a challenge, maybe facing hostile people, and what you would, do differently, or how you would handle that differently. Thank you.
Okay, well, in that situation, in the past, like I told you, I come from a political family, so there's always a chance to be, when it gets feisty, kind of want to retaliate. But I've realized that, as a politician or as someone that is politically active, you are going to have to be very, very calm. You're going to have to take a lot of things on the chin. A lot, you should be prepared. The insults, the heckling, it's going to come. And that shows how mature you are, because then obviously I wasn't mature. I was, it wasn't strange thing to me. And, you're looking at someone and thinking, well, this hoodlum is talking to me anyhow, you stupid kind of thing. But in the long run, you realize that the best thing to do, no matter how provoked you are, you must just maintain your calm. It's difficult, but you have to. That's the way things are done. So that's an instance I'm giving you in dealing with a hostile crowd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So our next question is from Bamayi.
Still can't hear you.
Okay, so since we can't hear you, Bamayi, I'll just ask your question. It says, good evening. Can your manifesto change after making a declaration? Maybe you discover you will need to add or remove something. And please say something about stakeholders.
Yes, your manifesto can change. Now, it's not a document cast in stone. Like you said, if you realize that in the process of making maybe your official declaration, there were some things that, but you see, this is why we always say you should, proofread, alienate irrelevant issues, do all these things, be properly prepared. But then again, where there's nobody that is not susceptible to mistakes. So in the long run, you find out that there's something wrong, you can change it. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. You can. It's not like there's a rule like if you change it, you are disqualified or anything of that sort. No. So you can. And then stakeholders, well, all I can tell you is they're the most dangerous bunch. It's just there is this. You just have to be lucky with them. Let's use it that way. It's not. I don't know how to explain a stakeholder to you, but stakeholders, these are the people that are behind the scenes. They really are seen, but they decide what happens. These are stakeholders. They are the power brokers in the political parties, in the constituencies. You rarely see them. You don't even see them in political activities, but they can swing the delegates your way. They can swing the electorates your way because of the power and influence the world over those people. Because, for example, they are very rich, powerful. They've been, instrumental to a lot of people's progresses. So the people are indebted to those people. So those are who stakeholders are, literally.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Akin, you are next. Please ask your question.
Thank you for this wonderful session. My question is, I read something about, I saw something about manifesto, and my question is, must someone's manifesto reflect the party identity? That's my question, sir.
Well, these days, literally, most parties don't have an identity. That's what you should ask yourself. The most political parties, it's the identity of the candidates that shape what happens, literally. So I don't know. I've been in the PDP for this is going on maybe roughly about 20 years now. Oh, yeah, about that. We understand, okay, the national unity, progress, and all that. But generally, what ideologies really the political parties have in the country, that you shape with their manifestos? We don't really have any ideologies. The candidates, most political parties are just looking for candidates that can win elections. So your ideas and your own declaration and your manifesto is what is adopted literally once you become the candidate. Is that understood?
Bright Lawrence is raising his hand. Bright Lawrence, do you want to contribute to that question?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Thank you so very much. My name is Bright Lawrence. I actually wanted to want a more clarification on what a question by Mr. Bamaye asked. Does it mean that, like in my local government, we have about 30 wards? So if I'm vying for a position of local government chairman, does it mean that I have to go around those 30 wards repeating the same thing as my manifesto, or will I be allowed to modify it, add or remove something from it? Sorry, I joined the class a little bit late. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, like I said earlier on, naturally you want to work with your manifesto, but then obviously, like also my boss, the ED, said, the executive director, they go into different words. In your manifesto, there are different issues that they have. You are saying in your local government, for example, you have 30 wards. Obviously, they all need social amenities. But now, if you're going to maybe Ward B, they have water. Ward C, they don't have electricity. You're talking about social amenities, but then you talk about electricity in Ward C instead of talking about water, since they have water. So do you understand? So in those kind of scenarios, definitely there's some modification that is done. But generally, your declaration is the same text. Obviously, since in your declaration, you are vying for local government chairman of those 30 wards. In those 30 wards, they need social amenities, which you're going to talk about. Now you talk about water, you talk about electricity, you talk about maybe even schools, you talk about education and all that. But now, going to each every ward, even after you've read your text, you will now elaborate on what is lacking in that ward. Is that understood?
Yes, yes, it's understood. Thank you. Next, after that, okay.
All right, I guess I'll be taking probably just one more or two questions. I have to run off to the gym.
Okay, sir. So just the 3 people I mentioned, after this question is Paul and okay, and we'll call it a class.
All right, all right.
Please ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. This is a very insightful lecture. You mentioned something about the power brokers, and that is where I'm quite interested in. If we look at our Nigerian political climate, when we are talking about one thing, as it affects every other person and the common man, it's like the power brokers and let me call them the kingmakers. It's like they have something else in mind, something else they're actually looking at. It's like the manifesto that is for everyone is not actually for them. So I want to ask, when declaring or having the conversation with the kingmakers or the power brokers, what are some of the things, like can you give us examples of some of the things that we can highlight or talk about, something that will actually pique their interest? Because I can give an example. It looks like it's something that functions all over the world. I can look at, let me just give Obama as an example. Obama was introduced to the Americans after his speech in 2004. Then the 2008 elections, he was way behind, and it was like something happened from nowhere, and all of a sudden he was ahead of Hillary Clinton and he became the leading candidate. So it appears that there's some form of conversation that happened behind that actually made him the leading candidate with the power brokers. So my question is, if we're going to be having a conversation with the power brokers or the kingmakers, what are some of the things? Can you give us examples of some of the things that we can highlight to actually pique their interest?
You see, most of the time when it comes to power brokers and the stakeholders, frankly speaking, they don't give a hoot about your declaration or your manifesto. They don't. All they care about is can you protect their interests? That's just the truth. Let's not shit ourselves or kid ourselves. This is what really matters to them. It's about protecting of interest, and are you a young man or a young woman that is amiable and they can work with? So when you're dealing with stakeholders and the rest, at that point, what you're trying to do is woo them. However witty you are, however intelligent you are, you have to impress them with your knowledge and things like that. It's not really about your manifesto. These guys they see manifestos year in, year out, so that doesn't really mean much to them. What matters to them is are you someone they can work with? That's just it. I guess that's okay, Ko. All right.
Paul, please ask your
Okay,
question.
good
Thank you very
evening.
much, sir.
Yeah, okay, good evening all.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you,
evening.
facilitator, and thank you for a wonderful lecture. My question is actually similar to the last question that was asked. When preparing your declaration or manifesto, do you sell your party kind of what the stakeholders want to the community, or you put up what you think you can achieve to the community? The second question is just the first question, just like you say, you talked about social amenities. yes, I know definitely once you vote for me and I get into the power, I'll deem it fit to work on the social amenities. Do I do that, or I move straight to what the stakeholders want me to do by giving me the accord as their leading candidate? Why my second question is, do you prepare your manifesto based on what you can actually achieve, or just to wow the audience or to wow the people that are going to hear it?
Okay, I'll start with your second question. Why would you prepare a document to wow the audience? You see, this is where the problem begins. Because you wow the audience and okay, they get hoodwinked on whatever you wow them with. And then you get into office and you can't provide. So you should, I believe, if we want to have politics of progress and sincerity, you say what you think you can achieve. You don't say things that you can achieve. Why is I don't want to go into any political party bashing right now, but why is the Buhari government vilified? Because it said so many things that now don't seem achievable, and the people are angry. So I believe when you're making a declaration, you say things that you think are achievable. Even if eventually maybe you might even be able to do much more than that. But limit it. Make them don't people are tired and angry and hungry and sad and depressed. So why compound their problems more? We want to play politics. The reason why people are learning this is because we want to begin to play politics of purpose and sincerity. So if you're going to begin to lie in your document to doing the people, then that's a problem. It's a big problem. And then the first question, I didn't really get that. If you could come again.
Okay, the first question was, I was trying to say, do you sell your party when making your declaration or manifesto? When I mean selling your party, what the stakeholders want. For example, the stakeholders want you to come up with social amenities, and you want to work on educational aspect. Do you go straight to what they want because they are the one that put you over
Well, you
to
see,
run
at
for the
that
position
point,
you are
you
looking
also
for?
it's a give and take situation. You can't just work solely on what they want, because if you are going to listen to strictly what the stakeholders tell you, believe you me, at some point you're going to get in trouble. So nobody's saying you should rebel against them because they probably will get you there or put you there. But then you should also be very careful not to become a pawn in their own chess play. So you have to be, it's a very, very, very difficult thing, but you have to be able to balance it out. You do a bit of what the party wants, but then again, you as a politician, you're an individual and you're answerable to your people, not the political party, literally. So you have to have a way of balancing it out, be able to work with the two, that's you have to be able to juggle it. That's just what it is. All right, people.
Thank you.
I guess at this point.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah. So we just have we had just one last question, but if it's past time, then we can ask our questions. Okay.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
My name is Okay Harry. I want to ask a question. When you were talking about declarations, I listened keenly. And I know that the office of the party chairman is also a political office and it's contestable. So my question is,
yes,
the ways of declarations as regard to the other offices like senatorial and others, the same way is it applicable to of the party chairman?
Well, you see, ideally, anybody voting for the office of the party chairman, like I'll use the case study of my political party, PDP. I remember it was in 2014 or so. I'm sorry, not 16 or 17, when Chief Raymond Jokwesi was trying to declare chairman. He came to every state to declare officially that he wanted to run for the office. I know that when Iyocha Ayu and even what's his name, the man from Rivers State, they became party chairman, that didn't happen. It's supposed to be the general idea that anybody running for the office of party chairman should visit the 36 states and party secretariats to officially declare. But you know, these days, things don't work that way in the country, literally. Once the governors come together in Abuja and they decide, okay, this is their man and this is who they want to support, it's fine. And then they just go to the general convention and, you know, sanction whoever they've endorsed, literally. But ideally, this is supposed to be the procedure, like running for any or vying for any other office.
Okay. Okay. Take in, please.
All right. Thank you very much. And good evening, everybody.
So we have come to the end of today's class. If you have any further questions, please ask them in the general group and we will escalate them to our facilitator. At this point, I would like you to please express your appreciation. We've seen a number of comments saying, thank you, sir, insightful class. So this is your opportunity, you know, to express your thanks. And on behalf of the entire class, sir, we just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for your patience in taking all the questions. Thank you for the insights you have shared. We really appreciate this insightful, you know, and enlightening session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everyone, and you all have a happy weekend.